My name is Stephanie Miller. I'm 28 years old, and I lost my daughter to measles. My daughter was a spunky and happy child. We never had any issues with her. She was our easy one. We started to notice when she was about 7 years old that she started to lose her appetite and developed a lot of red spots all over her body that almost looked like bruises. We decided to take her to the doctor, and after some tests were done, we found out that our little girl had leukemia. This was devastating to my husband and I. We didn't understand how this could have happened to our little girl. She immediately got started on chemo to help fight the cancer. Because her body was so immunocompromised from the chemo drugs, she wasn't allowed to keep up with her normal vaccination schedule and quickly fell behind. In between chemo treatments, she attended school as much as possible. As the winter season came, sicknesses began to spread. One in particular was the measles. We thought that this would never have been an issue because all the kids in that school were supposed to be vaccinated for this. We soon came to realize that there was several students whose parents refused to vaccinate their children. Because of their unwillingness to vaccinate, our Isabella received the measles and died within 3 days.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Rogers. I'm 35 years old. I have a PhD in immunology and I work here at Worcester Labs. Humans have a very sophisticated immune system. It's composed of two distinct components working in perfect unison to create an effective pathogen-killing machine. To refresh your minds, the two components consist of the humoral and the cellular system. When an unfriendly pathogen such as a virus enters your bloodstream, your humoral system begins the process. T lymphocytes, also called T cells, traveling around in the bloodstream, detect the foreign pathogens and sound the alarm. B lymphocytes, or B cells or plasma cells, take their direction from the T cells and begin producing antibodies, also known as immunoglobulins. Antibodies are large, Y-shaped proteins whose shape is a puzzle piece that fits into an antigen protein on a specific pathogen. They work by binding to the antigen on the offending cells, providing a flag for the immune system cells in the cellular component to rush in and neutralize the cell. They can also fill up the antigen proteins on the entirety of the offending cell, rendering it useless to continue to divide and cause disease. Antibodies can be cultivated actively or passively. Active antibodies are typically created in an individual's body by their own B cells. The person is exposed to a pathogen, their body springs into action. But antibodies can also be passed directly from person to person without B cell involvement in the receiver. For instance, a newborn baby has a very immature immune system. A virus or a bacteria that would have little to no effect in a healthy adult could be devastating for an infant or a similarly immunocompromised person. Passive immunity, that is to say, already formed antibodies, can actually pass from mother to baby in breast milk. The antibodies are made in the mom's body by the plasma cells and transported through the breast milk into the baby, providing protection from different bacteria and viruses that the mother has come into contact with.
Hello, I am Summer Dawn Fawn Blue Moon Popovich. I am 32 years young and I am part of the anti-vaxxer tribe. We are a movement that began in 1879 based on the smallpox vaccination. I mean, did you know there's mercury in those gel-looking things? If you're any kind of good parent, I don't know about you, but you will not stick your kid with those things. It all started the night of December 16th, 2009, where my sister's brother's cousin, brother-in-law's stepsister's mother's ex-husband's fiance got the MMR vaccine, and he got autism. I should have told him about the blog on Andrew Wakenfield's link to the MMR vaccine and autism. Mother Earth is our physician, and she's a great one. She provides natural resources like zinc, iron, echinacea, oregano. These things build our natural immunity, and there are no side effects.
Besides polio.
Oh yes, most certainly. Mother Earth is my armor. Plus, if you are vaccinating your children, why should I vaccinate mine if yours are already immune to the disease?
Herd immunity is when there is resistance of a contagious disease within a community that results in a higher number of people who are immune to that disease. Vaccinations are a perfect example of this. They allow people to be protected against a specific disease, and if everyone in that community receives that vaccine, there is little to no chance of the disease spreading to others who are unable to receive it. In my daughter Isabella's case, herd immunity did not work. This is because some of the parents within the community decided that it wasn't necessary for their children to be vaccinated, when in fact it was. For herd immunity to work, a certain percentage of people in the community need to be vaccinated in order for the people who are unable to be vaccinated to be protected. Each disease has its own percentage, with measles being the highest at 95%, and this is why Isabella was not protected. If all the other children around her were vaccinated, she would still be here with us today.
Vaccines also utilize an active process to prevent viral and bacterial infections. Most vaccines work by isolating a dangerous pathogen and weakening it. We weaken pathogens by passing them through fertilized chicken eggs. The pathogen will begin to mutate in order to become better at causing disease in chickens, but the mutations cause the pathogen to be less effective at causing disease in humans. Therefore, by the time the pathogen makes a few passes through the chicken egg, it's so weak in the human body, it can't reproduce and cause disease or illness. However, its surface proteins are still sufficient to produce a T cell, B cell call-in response. B cells end up making antibodies to take out the weakened pathogen, and the result is an immune system primed to fight that particular pathogen without actually causing any symptoms of the illness. We essentially prime the immune system by utilizing its own components. It's an active process, but it's not artificial. Vaccines are subject to a rigorous testing process and only hit the markets when researchers are convinced of their safety. They begin with lab and animal studies, which can last between 2 to 4 years. Animal subjects include mice and monkeys, and they give researchers an idea of how the vaccine may induce a cellular response in humans. When researchers feel confident that the dosage is safe and effective, a sponsor has to submit an application to the FDA. The FDA has a review board which must approve the clinical protocol. From there, 3 phases of testing commence. The first is a vaccine trial, in which the vaccine is tested in a small group of adults between 20 and 80 subjects. Later, in phase 2, a larger group of several hundred individuals participate. Finally, if phase 2 is successful, the vaccine will move on to phase 3, in which the safety is tested in a large group of people. Then, the researchers must submit the vaccine to the Biologics License application to the FDA. The vaccines continue to be monitored, including phase 4 trials, Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting Systems, also known as VAERS, and the Vaccine Safety Data Link. Every subsequent lot of vaccine continues to be monitored and approved by the FDA. Few vaccines contain a component called thimerosal, which is ethyl mercury. This is different than methyl mercury, the type found in fish that can be toxic to people in large doses. Ethyl mercury clears from the human body quickly and is very unlikely to cause harm. It's used to prevent growth of bacteria in certain multi-dose vaccine bottles. There have been no studies showing evidence of any harm caused by the very small amounts of ethyl mercury in vaccines. Redness or swelling at the injection site in rare cases is possible due to allergy, but doesn't cause lasting damage. Despite having no evidence that it causes harm, it was taken out of childhood vaccines in the United States in 2001. Non-thimerosal vaccines are available to adults who are still wary of the compound.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Nelson. I am 32 years of age, and I am a nurse practitioner. Healthy People 2020 is an evidence-based list of national health objectives with baseline data and measurable goals and established targets. It includes over 1,200 objectives that represent important health initiatives. The Department of Health and Human Services keeps data on the goals, allowing us to monitor progress and guide efforts to improve health. Healthy People 2020 has set a goal to increase immunization rates and reduce preventable infectious diseases. It's remarkable that in today's age, over 40,000 adults and 300 children in the US die each year from vaccine-preventable diseases. Often, undervaccinated or unvaccinated communities lack access to affordable health care. More recently, however, there have been communities who are undervaccinated due to the persuasiveness of the anti-vaxxer movement. In 2008, there was 140 cases of measles, representing a threefold increase from 2007. It's concerning because this can have a devastating impact on our communities. The issue of immunization goes beyond an individual just being against vaccinations. Unfortunately, in today's society, we are faced with fake news and false facts that sadly come from highly recognized publications of false data demonstrating the risk of immunizations. This, of course, was uncorroborated, but sadly, the damage was done. The issue arises because some individuals who don't have access to treatment are usually unaware, can't afford, or have limited access to treatment. We also have to take into account their perception of immunization and any complications associated. It can be a challenge to strike a balance between the patient's risk perception and behavior change, and also reality. We try to push the initiative of awareness and education in hopes that it will encourage parents to see the benefits of vaccinating. Within the clinical realm, we should present to parents the real dangers of not immunizing their child, because the real risks to children are significant. We play a critical role in providing our patients with the facts. It can be challenging because sometimes the facts may not necessarily help in decision making. It is in the consultations that we have the opportunity to explore what their fears and anxieties are. Our goal is to influence change, so we must get the patient's risk perception in the middle, and this is done through teaching. It's our responsibility to be current with our vaccinations so that we don't expose our most vulnerable patients to something that could potentially kill them. This is the immunization schedule that you need to know from birth to 18 years of age. This is a helpful mnemonic to help you remember all the vaccines and when they are to be administered. Now, as you can see on this chart, across the top row, you have the months and the years. From birth, which is B, you have the numbers 2, 4, 6, which represents the months, and then you have 1 to 1.5, 4 to 6, 11 to 12, and 16 to 18, which represents the years. Under each column, it represents the vaccines to be administered. So B, which represents Hep B, you are to give hepatitis B at birth. Under the second column, remember the mnemonic 2B Dr. Hip. So at 2 months, you will administer Hep B. D is for diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis toxin, which is DTaP. R is for rotavirus. H is for H influenza type B, which is Hib. I is for inactivated poliovirus. P is for PCV. Now, under 4 months, remember the mnemonic 4 Dr. Hip. So at 4 months, you are to give D, DTaP, R, rotavirus, H influenza, Hib. I is for inactivated poliovirus, and P, PCV. Now, under 6 months, the mnemonic is B Dr. Hip in 6 months. So you are to administer hepatitis B. D represents DTaP. R is rotavirus. H is Hib. I is inactivated poliovirus. P is for PCV. Under the column of 1 to 1.5 years, use the mnemonic 1 MAD HPV. So the M represents MMR. The A represents hepatitis A. D represents DTaP. H represents Hib. P is for PCV. And V represents varicella. Now, under 4 to 6 years of age, remember the mnemonic, it's very dim between 4 to 6 p.m. The V represents varicella. The D represents DTaP. I represents inactive poliovirus. And M represents MMR. Our next column, under 11 to 12 years, remember the mnemonic at 11 to 12, ta-da, in humans, boys become men. The T represents Tdap. The H represents human papillomavirus. And the M represents meningococcal. Now lastly, under the column of 16 to 18 years, remember the mnemonic, men get boosted. At the age of 16, you will get your meningococcal booster shot.
I have a couple reliable links online, plus my friend Rain, she has a blog on anti-vaccination. Don't get me started on injecting my children on a bunch of vaccines in a short period of time. It's ridiculous. Overloading our children with toxins. This leaves them more susceptible to neurodevelopmental problems and diabetes. The vaccine itself can even cause the disease it's trying to prevent. It's better for my child to get the flu over natural causes rather than the vaccine itself, so that they can build their immunity and then they will naturally fight it off. Yes. Well, Edward Hooper wrote a book on the link between the polio vaccine and HIV. It explains how the cells from chimpanzees were infected with a virus that gave people that got the polio vaccine, they got HIV. So that's for any other vaccine. I mean, what if you get the TB shot and then you get malaria?
Actually, yes, there is. In 2017, there was an outbreak in Minnesota with the Somali American community. Anti-vaxxers were targeting this community to help spread the word to not get children vaccinated. The anti-vaxxers were successful because this community's childhood vaccination rates went from 92% in 2004 to 42% in 2014. This is a 50% decrease in 10 years. When the measles outbreak reached this community in March of 2017, more than 8,200 people were exposed, most involving the unvaccinated children. The moms of the Somali American community began to urge parents to protect their children of getting the MMR vaccine. Physicians began seeing people who previously refused vaccines and came and had their children vaccinated. The amount of people vaccinated at the hospital clinics in 2017 will more than triple the number of vaccinations given in 2016. Once this group saw how severe the infection really is, they quickly changed their minds about vaccinations. Well, I have many opinions about this guy. He was a famous physician in Britain that got the modern-day anti-vax movement going. He published a paper with false information showing that there was a link between the MMR vaccine and autism. Wakefield had been paid by a law board to find out if there was evidence to support a case of parents that the vaccine caused harm to their children. There have been much research done, and none of them found a connection between the MMR vaccine and autism. In 2010, Wakefield's paper was withdrawn and his medical license was suspended. Even with this paper being discredited, many people still follow his movement with no proof or research showing that it was true. He has started a filing that has drastically affected vaccination rates within the United States and is allowing infectious diseases to be brought back into the U.S. that have been gone for decades. It boggles my mind how people can continue to follow a movement that has no evidence of anything.
I am going to demonstrate the proper technique for an IM injection. All but 2 vaccines are via the IM. These subcutaneous injections include MMR and Varicella. So initially, what you will do is palpate the acromion process and go about 3 finger breadths down. Once you have the site, you are going to clean the area with an alcohol swab. And remember, from inner to outer. When you are ready to inject, you are going to stabilize the site by applying a little pressure. And then at a 90-degree angle, go straight into the deltoid muscle. Stabilize the needle with the other hand. Aspirate per institution protocol. And this is to ensure that you are not in a vein or a vessel. If no blood return, inject the medication. And then remove the needle. We are going to apply light pressure with a gauze and then place a bandage.
The anti-vaxxers have been particularly persuasive in certain areas of the country. A specific example is their influence in the Somali American community in Hennepin County, Minnesota. In 2004, Somali American children in Minnesota were vaccinated at a rate of 92%. By 2014, it had decreased to a rate of just 42%. The drastic drop in rates have been attributed to the work of anti-vaccination groups who link vaccines with autism. When it was originally written, Healthy People 2020 had a goal of 90% adherence to childhood vaccination targets for greater than 1 dose of MMR, greater than 3 doses of Hep B, greater than 1 dose of varicella, greater than 4 doses of pneumococcal, and greater than 4 doses of DTaP or Tdap. Today, they've revised their goal to 80%. The most unfortunate consequence of the anti-vaccine movement has been the uptick in measles cases in the United States since 2012. Measles is a highly infectious disease, and a large proportion of the population must be vaccinated in order to provide for herd immunity. 96 to 99% of the population must be vaccinated in order to confer maximal protection for those who cannot receive vaccines due to their status as immunocompromised. Despite these examples, rates of vaccinations in general in the country as a whole have increased since 2012. In 2015, the percentage of children aged 19 to 35 months who received the recommended doses of DTaP, polio, MMR, HIB, Hep B, varicella, and PVC vaccines have increased from 68% in 2012 to 72% in 2015. We hope this trend continues positively to protect as many people as possible from preventable diseases and eventually eradicate these viruses worldwide. Vaccines have helped prevent innumerable childhood illnesses, which can, in some cases, result in deformity and death. There's a lot of misinformation out there about the safety of vaccines. It's important to be an informed consumer. For more information about safety of vaccines, please visit the FDA or CDC's website. Beware of blogs with no credible sources. Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true.